Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. I'm Cassandra. This is Mom. We are Millennial Mom and we are here to talk about Ready to Love. And the reason why I like doing Ready to Love with my mom is because I really enjoy her perspective on this type of show, because I feel like this leans more towards an older crowd than a younger crowd. So I'm always interested to see if her thinking aligns with some of the people's thinking on this show.
You mean people that's in my peer group, not necessarily the older crowd?
Yes, that's what I mean.
Right.
You know what I meant.
I know. But I have to agree with you there, because most people on the show are like, if they're not 40 and up, they are, and there's a sprinkling that's 30. And I think that if you are in a phase of your life where you know what you want, you're ready to love and ready to move to the next phase of your life, then I think my perspective is a little more in depth than yours.
It is. So this is season 4, episode 4, called Spilling Tea and Sipping Wine. And I don't know if there was a lot of wine being sipped or tea being spilt, but it was definitely, and it was an okay show, because we did get to learn a little bit more about the men and some of the women, because the men are actually on a chopping block this week. And I already have in my mind who I think should be going home. And we'll let you know who that is at the end of the show. But Tommy asked the women, when you go on these dates with these men, when you go to their house, just dig a little deeper, find out a little bit more who they are as a person, be an investigating eye, like Alexis. So she claims. So the first date we actually get to see is Joelle's fighting over Vernisha. Now, I saw this going around social media, and even Mom picked this up. Vernisha was not wearing a bra going to Joelle's house. So Mom, I got a question for you, because I've been seeing this comment go around social media, especially with her not wearing a bra. Do you think a woman going on at least the first date with a man should wear a bra? Is that such a big deal? Because I don't think it's a big deal.
I know you don't think it's a big deal. We have a conversation about this on a regular, because I think you should dress appropriate. It's your first date, first impressions. I mean, the mixer was a little bit of an impression, and then moving through the house for a day or two, but you're going to someone's house, I think you should dress appropriate.
I think you should dress how you want to dress. Be you. And that's who Vernisha was being. And Joelle likes it. He said she kind of feels like I can even hear what he said because his accent was so strong. I had to put the captions on.
He said it's like, when you meet someone at a Zulu bar
when it's Mardi Gras. I'm like, I think I want to experience it. That must be a really good feeling. But they seem to be hitting it off really well. You can tell Vernisha finds Joelle very attractive, and likewise. And she was like, oh, you made this breakfast, so what are you doing after this? He was like, I'm going to set up the kitchen. She was like, oh, so you're good with your hands. I was like, Vernisha trying to find out some things. But Joelle took it as like, yeah, I'm good with my hands. When I was married, that's the stuff that I used to do. I used to do the stuff for the home, cook, clean, just like really nice stuff, making stuff, building stuff, all that kind of things. And Vernisha is liking this within Joelle.
Yeah, she is. And you would too, wouldn't you? You walk into a nice home.
Yeah, of course I would. Because, my TV be leaning when I put it on.
Yeah. You walk into a nice home. He makes you breakfast. He's trying to make you comfortable. I'm sure she maybe felt a spark with that hug he gave. And I think they connected, or at least they had a vibe, especially when it came to kids, putting kids first and, where they want to go.
And she also connected with him because he's overcame some things, and she's like, well, I did too. So that's another level that they're connecting on. And right now, I can possibly see them being a couple. Can you?
Yeah, possibly.
All right, so let's move on to Alexis and Troy on a date. Now, Alexis said that she has noticed that Troy has been around with pretty much all the women on the show that fits his standard of beauty. And she doesn't really care for the idea of he's not only wanted to take her on a trip for her birthday, but other women on a trip for her birthday. So when Alexis walks in, Troy just automatically gives her a kiss on the forehead, and he was like, how you doing? You look good. You smell nice. You my number one. You already know that. She was like, oh, I am?
Right. I am. I'm your number one. She was like, starting to check him already, but he can't. Tacky Troy can't pick up on the clues.
He can't pick up on the clues because he's such a narcissist and only thinks about himself. But she was like, I have missed some of your calls. And the reason for that is It's because you've been around with all these other women. You've been kissing everybody. He was like, that is not what I do. I don't kiss on people on the cheeks. That's not what I do.
No. He's stingy on the cheek. She goes, you know how like you kiss me on the forehead?
Yeah.
He's like, that's not what I do. That is not my MO. His MO is on the cheek. Doesn't matter if the cheek,
the forehead.
He knew what she was talking about.
No, he did it because he was like, I don't do the forehead. I do the cheek specifically.
Well, how did he miss kissing her on the forehead then?
Because he just does it as a habit for the women that he likes, and even went on to say in his confessional, you know, if they didn't flinch, you know, they must have liked it. I'm like, see,
tacky Troy.
It's beyond tacky. He needs to go. So moving off from Troy, because I don't like talking about Troy. Do you, Mom?
No.
It is Amber going on a date with Chris. I like this date. They look cute. They're funny. They're goofy together. I'm like, they just look like a very cute couple.
I agree. And you know, at first I didn't think that they would actually be a cute couple because of the age difference. But they got into it. They had their little sparring matches and he let her spar against him, stuff like that. But after they finished boxing,
which is the most important part.
Right. They got into details about their lives. And it turns out that Amber was adopted when she was 5. And she got to know her sister when she got older because I guess they didn't see each other since they were 5 and 7. And so it's a part of her life that she is now starting to relish and know her other family members, stuff like that. But one thing interesting she said was she's the only one out of her family that went to school and finished college and all these other things. And then Chris chimed in and he said his dad has 11 kids by 9 women. And so he just reconnected with some of his family members at a reunion too. And I guess that was awkward. So they bonded over that. And I thought that was very nice. See, when you have something deep and internal you could bond over, that can create a friendship instantly, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I wish we would have known that about Chris last season, because all we really knew from Chris was he was just trying to go 50-50 on the ring.
Yeah, but I don't think Naya last season would have cared about him and all that. She was just looking for the monetary value.
Yeah, and I definitely want to give a kudos to Amber being a DA. I mean, I know she's in her younger 30s, so she is really excelling in her life and her career. So that's very good. And I can also see them being a couple as well.
I can too.
All right, so let's move on to Stacy and David. I'm starting to get just a little bit of a funny vibe from Stacy. I don't know why I'm feeling it, but something doesn't seem right as we're going along.
I'm getting a vibe from Stacy too, and I'm just gonna put it out there. I don't think this is the show for Stacy. I think maybe Stacy needs to be on like Millionaire Matchmaker or something like that, because last week she shot down Chris. This week she wasn't feeling David and the things he had to say and how he presents things. And when she had the date with David on their one-on-one, you know, with the Pilates, she was talking to him kind of like condescending and sarcastic. To me, that's how I took it. And he was like, oh, you got jokes, like trying to like ease the tension in the room. But I was like, that is not a connection right there.
It wasn't a connection, especially on the part where they were talking about basically like transparency and trust in a relationship. So David more so thinks that his partner should give him all the information. And she's more so on the lines of like, yeah, you know, you can have like a little bit, but some things are meant for me. And Stacy was like, I think David is confusing, you know, transparency and secrecy together. And I'm just like, that is a good question. So Mom, I have another question for you. Do you believe your partner should have all of your information if you guys are in a relationship?
Well, you know what? I'm going to bring the two together. I could see what David is saying. When you're married, you know, everything should be on the table. There should be that transparency. But I still think you should have some sort of privacy, because if you're not doing nothing, it shouldn't matter. But if it's like, oh, well, let me see that, you shouldn't be like, oh my gosh, that's my phone. I mean, because I'm sure you know people who do that now. Like, oh, that's this, that's that. And that, you know, shows like, put something in your mind like where there could be a trust issue. You know what I'm saying? But where Stacy said transparency and secrecy, I say that I can see what she's saying too. Like, there's a transparent line and then there's a secrecy line. Like, if you're not doing anything, you should be able to trust me. So I see what they're saying, but I don't think those two have a balance when it comes to that in general.
Yeah, so therefore to say they're not a match. Next we have AJ, Alexis, Liz, and Jason all on a date. Basically, they're on a date to play cornhole. There wasn't really that much interaction with the four in total. Mm-hmm. They more so had a connection when they broke off into their pairs.
Yeah.
So when AJ was with Liz basically wanted to know, is AJ okay with celibacy? Mm-hmm. And AJ didn't necessarily say no. He more so straddled the line of like, I've been there before. I understand you want to have a genuine connection, but after the genuine connection we build, he wants something after that.
Yeah, because he said that, if there's a sexual connection, you feel it, like if there's a spark, how come we can't act on it? I think that's what he was saying. Mm-hmm. But Liz said that she's not celibate, she's abstinent.
She said she was celibate, not abstinent.
There might be a fine line where you straddle, like if you're abstinent, you're not doing it period till you get married or whatever, versus celibate is like, you might give in for the right person and you move on together.
Yeah, so Liz says she's celibate on that. But then we see the date with Alexis and Jason is having a hard time too, straddling between the fence, like, I coach her son and this could be a possible love connection, but I don't really even see a love connection sparking between those two, because they were even having an in-depth conversation, because Alexis went off to go talk about her period. I'm like, what did that have to do with anything?
And that was out the blue. She's like, oh, I guess I'll bring you out your comfort zone. But at the same time, once again, I don't think Alexis is a match for Jason either. Mm-hmm. And I also think that, like, let's say they get together, they don't work out. So now you have your son invested, you being with his coach. That would be awkward.
Right, now you gotta switch teams because you want to mess with his coach. All right, now let's go to Chrysanthemum and Ronald. They are out on a date. They're playing Jenga, they're playing Connect 4. It seems like they're vibing and having a good time. Mm-hmm. He is asking, like, what does she want in a man? And she wants basically someone like Ronald, who wants to be the provider, who wants
a protector,
taken care of, to be settled down with all that stuff. And Ronald's like, oh, this is exactly what I want. And Ronald is going into, how he got in trouble when he was 18, he went to jail, and he knows that his family instilled in him that he needs to go to college to make something of himself. And I guess he made something of himself now, and he wants to take that lead, be that manly man for someone. And Chrysanthemum just so happens to flow with what his ideology is, so this could be a possible connection.
I don't see the connection there either.
What?
And I think that Chrysanthemum is wanting someone who is going to be the protector, the provider, regardless of who it is, because she's ready for the next phase of her life. And then in Ronald's confessional, he said, I can see this is what she needs, this is what she wants, and I can do that for her. So when you're exuding stuff like that, you're going to exude it with everyone that you're on a date with because you want it so bad. I mean, if they're in a relationship with somebody, that should come naturally. Anyways, again, to me, not a match.
Not a match. You think she's on the right show?
I don't know.
Well, we have to see on that one. Then we see Liz go on a date with David, and their connection strives from their religious background, their religious upbringing. David goes in to say, he grew up in a Christian household. His mom will answer the phone saying, praise the Lord.
Hey,
he didn't have no girlfriends or
listen,
nothing.
I've known people like that. I still know people like that now. Praise the Lord. But that's just how some people are in their beliefs. They want you to know that it's a Christian household, this and that. But the interesting thing, I know I cut you off, I apologize.
It's okay.
Is that, he said he left home to go to college. And when he left college, he left the church. I guess those things were so embedded in him that he was so closed off, like he said, that he didn't know anything really about the real world that was happening. And so he said he left the church, but he didn't leave God. Now, I thought that was profound.
I mean, it was. I mean, I guess eventually he found his way back to God, to having God in his life, even though, his first marriage, he told
was young.
He wasn't ready to be a husband. I can see him being out, for the streets, because he's cute. So I can see him being out.
Yeah, and going against the norm of what he thought was supposed to be.
Then he said for his second marriage that she basically left him. So this is where his triggers are coming from. He doesn't want someone to leave him again. So I think this is why he wants all the bank account information. He wants the IGs, he wants the Twitters, he wants all that, because he wants to know what his spouse is doing. Liz, on the other hand, she is really connecting with David. She lets David know, like, you know, I was in a relationship 17 years ago, but that doesn't mean I weren't doing nothing. You know, I'm just waiting for that right one to come along. So she's feeling David in everything that he said, everything that he's gone through. And I think she could be possibly the one for David.
Right. She said she wasn't in a meaningful relationship, but she was in situationships. I'm like, there you go. That's two good analogies, two profoundness in one meeting. And I do think they have the right chemistry, the right vibe. I believe they are on the right track if they continue forward to get to know each other better, really exclusively.
Yeah. So then at the end, all the women are meeting up, including Nephew Tommy. And I have to say, Nephew Tommy was looking good in his suit and his chain. And all the other women too. But I was looking at Nephew Tommy. I know he is with someone, but he just looked good. But they were basically talking about who they were feeling the most. And of course, it's coming up that Vernisha and Joelle, they have that match going.
Well, I mean, just to break it down, all the ladies who had one-on-ones, except for Alexis, was feeling
Nope, you're wrong.
their dates.
Not Stacy. Stacy was not feeling
I wasn't
David.
getting into that except Stacy, but I kind of mentioned it before. Stacy wasn't feeling David, and she wasn't feeling Chris last week. You remember how she left him on the mixer? And I do believe Stacy, like I said, I don't think Stacy's on the right show. Like, the men that she's counting with one-on-one or whatever, she's either like listening and then walking off, or just, you know, finding something.
You think she wants more than what
her
it's getting?
Yeah, I do.
I think so too, a little bit. But hey, you know, Liz says even though he might want all the information, that's fine. That's kind of how she grew up too. So she's willing to give that to David. And Amber let them know, like, the other girls might call Chris KG, but he's Chris. That's her man.
Tommy was like, oh, he gave you the quiet storm. Quiet storm.
So that is her man. So who is going home? Stacy meets up with Troy. Amber meets up with David. When I saw these two match up, I was like, I already know who's going home.
Well,
the person who should be going home.
Who should be going home? Because before we get to that, like at the round table, is like who we're not feeling. And of course, one name came up specifically, which led to the two men being on the chopping block this week. But speaking of Troy, do you think they had the right person talking to Troy? Because it was Stacy, and I think, again,
who else would it be?
Stacy comes across very condescending. Why? Because she's one of the 5 of the 10 women who he didn't connect with?
Yeah, because he thought it was a date for them to connect. I'm like, you still thinking they on dates? How many days has it been? Like 5 days or whatever?
I don't know.
It's no longer a date. You are on the chopping block, Sir Troy. So he didn't seem like he was kind of confused on why all the women, but not all of the women, just some of the women, thought that he was just coming on to them a little bit too much.
Yeah, he was. He couldn't understand what was going on. But if it's your natural MO and no one has told you this before, you know, he just doesn't know.
I'm sure someone told him it before.
Well, maybe, you know, he feels like he's upper level in his package. Before he started the show, he was like, oh, I'm the best thing in Houston. So clearly he didn't listen.
Of course he does, because Stacy ended up telling him, like, you know, next time when you do this, come being genuine. Don't tell all these women you're going to take them on a trip. Don't be kissing everybody that you see. And even Troy in his confessional was like, you know, when I learned a lesson once, I learned it. You know, I don't do the same mistake again.
He said, I don't do it again. I don't learn it. I'm like, you did it over and over and over in the house.
No, but then in the same breath, he was like, but you know, I came as me. I was like, you can't say that you made a mistake, you're not going to do it again, but you came as yourself. So basically, this is what you do all the time.
So then we have David. Amber talked to David. She was saying what the reasons why he was put on the block was because of his issues with one of those passwords
His
and things
trust
like that.
issues, bringing the past into what he's
And
trying
one
to
thing he
build.
said was, well, that was on a specific date with Stacy. I'm like, well, call it out, David.
I mean, it's still the same conversation no matter how you spin it. It just depends on the messenger. Some people are going to agree with what David said. Some people aren't going to agree with what David said.
Yeah.
And that's just the bottom line. But he's here to live another day, at least for Liz, because I don't really see him connecting with any of the other women.
Right, so he's safe, and the man going home is Troy. Tacky Troy, out of here.
Good, because he needs something else. This is not the show for him.
But he did say, if you ready to love, where you at?
I know, and he pointed exactly to you, Mom.
He
Go ahead
did.
and hit him up. So that was the end of this week's episode, Ready to Love. I mean, it's getting what it usually gives every single episode, every single season. Hopefully, the
Masquerade Ball.
yeah, that should be very interesting next week. I'm very excited to see what's gonna happen with frickin' Freck and all the other people in the masquerade as well. So let us know what you guys thought about this week's episode in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already yet, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and have a good weekend.
Thank you all again for watching. And as always, live simply, be grateful.